My girlfriend ordered, "If your mom and I fell into the water at the same time, you must save me first, because I'm your future wife." I calmly replied, "I agree." The next morning when she returned home, she screamed when she saw her entire collection of expensive makeup and designer clothes floating on the surface of the nearby lake. When my fiancé looked me dead in the eye and said, "If your mom and I fell into the water at the same time, you must save me first because I'm your future wife," I didn't argue or laugh. I just nodded once and said, very calmly, "I agree." She smiled like she'd just won something. Like love was a contest she could measure in obedience. What she didn't know was that I don't play emotional games. I don't prove loyalty through hypotheticals. I pay attention, I remember. And when the time comes, I act. See, people who need to test your love are usually the ones who are planning to weaponize it later. And Olivia, my fiancée, was about to find out that I don't fail tests. I rewrite the questions. That night, while she was asleep, I stood by the window overlooking the small lake behind my house. The surface was still, moonlight shimmering across it. And I thought, if she ever truly tries to make me choose between her and my mother, then she'll understand exactly what it feels like to lose what she values most. I'm 32, and it's always been just me and my mum. My dad passed when I was 9. Cancer. He left us with debts, an old house, and a few black and white photos my mum still keeps on her nightstand. She worked 2 jobs, never remarried, and somehow managed to make my childhood feel normal. She's one of those people who never complains, even when she should. The kind who cooks your favorite meal when you had a bad day. Growing up, she was my anchor, not because she was perfect, but because she was constant. So yeah, when I finally found someone I thought I could build a life with, I wanted her to be proud of me. That someone was Olivia. Olivia was everything my mum had once hoped I'd find, at least at first glance. Smart, funny, driven. She worked in marketing, had that polished confidence that fills a room. Mom adored her instantly, said she was good for me, that she challenged me, and for a while Mom was right. Olivia made me laugh again. We went on weekend trips, cooked together, spent lazy Sundays watching bad movies. Then after the proposal, something shifted. It started small, subtle, almost easy to miss. The first time Mom called me while Olivia and I were out for dinner, Olivia didn't say a word. She just looked at her phone, then at me and sighed, loudly. When I hung up, she said, "You talk to your mom a lot." "Like, a lot. I shrugged it off. "She's alone most of the time." "Yeah, but we're together now." "You don't need to check in with her every day, right?" The way she said check in made it sound like I was reporting to a supervisor. I remember smiling and saying something like, "That's just how we are." But she didn't smile back. Over the next few weeks, the comments kept coming, disguised as jokes. When Mom dropped off homemade soup, "Does she think I can't cook?" When I mentioned sending money for Mom's medicine, "Oh, you're such a good son. Just make sure you save something for your wife too." When Mom offered to help decorate our new place, I'd rather do it myself. Don't want her turning it into a museum. Every time her tone was light, teasing, but her eyes were sharp, measuring my reactions. I tried to talk to her about it once. I told her I felt she was being a little unfair. She crossed her arms, leaned back and said, "I'm just setting boundaries. You want a healthy marriage, don't you? There can't be 2 women running your life." That line hit harder than I expected. 2 women running my life. As if love was a corporate takeover. It got worse when we started wedding planning. Mom offered to help with invitations and Olivia declined twice. Then she told me, "Your mom can help with simple stuff, like flower arrangements. She likes things like that, right?" I realized then that help meant stay out of the way. Olivia was friendly in front of Mom, always smiling, always sweet. But the second Mom left, her tone changed. She'd say things like, "Your mom's sweet, but she needs to know her place." One night, she joked, "After we're married, we should get her a nice condo. Somewhere farther away, so we can have our privacy." When I didn't respond, she added quickly, "I'm kidding." Mostly. She wasn't kidding. Still, I tried to see the good. I told myself she just wanted independence, that maybe it was a cultural clash, or nerves about the wedding. But there was one moment I couldn't shake. Mom had spent all day making dinner for us, her classic roast chicken, the one dish she only made on special occasions. When she called us to eat, Olivia smiled politely but barely touched her plate. Later that night, she said, "Your mum's cooking is fine, but she uses food like a weapon, It's her way of keeping control. That one stopped me cold. My mom's food, her control, the woman who skipped meals so I could eat. That was the first time I looked at Olivia and saw something ugly beneath all the charm. She set up a shared account, her idea, but somehow my paychecks ended up in it faster than hers did. When I sent money to Mom one weekend, Olivia noticed within the hour. We should have talked about that. Big expenses need to be discussed. Big expenses, I asked. It was $70. That's not the point. It's about transparency. Couples share decisions. I realized she wasn't talking about sharing anything. She meant permission. Still, I stayed calm. I told myself I could manage this. That people soften once they feel secure. But the truth was, Olivia didn't want security. She wanted control dressed up as love. And the more I gave, the more she took. Tiny pieces of autonomy, disguised as compromise. By the time she made that "if your mom and I fell into the water" comment, it wasn't a test of affection. It was a declaration of ownership. And she had no idea that I'd already made up my mind. I wasn't hers to own. It happened on a Saturday morning, one of those quiet weekends where the world feels like it's giving you a chance to breathe. Olivia had gone out early for a bridesmaids' brunch, the kind of event that somehow always ended with her coming home a little tipsy and a little more entitled. Her iPad was open on the counter. I wasn't snooping until I saw my name in a notification, but when the notification popped up and I saw my name in the preview, my instincts did what logic wouldn't let me. I tapped it. The first thing I noticed was the group chat name. Wifey Support Squad, classy. And then the messages. Girl, how's wedding prep? You finally convince him to send his mom packing? Olivia, not yet. He's too soft about her. But once we move in, I'll handle it. Handle it how? Olivia, easy, I'll just say it's for her own comfort. He hates conflict. If I sound sad instead of mad, he'll fold. Another friend wrote, you better get that house in your name first. Olivia, already working on it. He's the type who'll temporarily put everything under me if I say it's better for taxes. My stomach didn't twist or drop. It just went still. That's the thing about betrayal. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's so quiet it feels surgical. I scrolled. Does his mom still live with him? Olivia, yeah, but not for long. I'm not sharing a house with a woman who thinks I need her approval to exist. LOL, tell her to drown herself. Olivia, ha! If only. I stopped reading. I set the iPad down gently, as if the way I placed it could somehow undo the words inside it. Then I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and let the silence fill the room. People always assume anger comes first. It didn't. What came first was clarity. Every little comment, every sigh, every harmless joke suddenly snapped into place. She wasn't insecure, she was deliberate. Every act of affection had been an investment toward control. I thought about my mom, about how she'd smiled at Olivia just last week while teaching her how to make dumplings. Mom had said, she'll be good for you. She's strong. She had no idea how right she was, just not in the way she meant. That night, Olivia came home all sunshine and champagne. She wrapped her arms around my neck and said, "Miss me?" I smiled. "Always." She laughed, kissed me, and started scrolling through her phone, probably checking if I'd seen anything. I didn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I watched her, the way she preened in the mirror, the way she complimented herself out loud like she was auditioning for an audience. And I thought, you have no idea you've already lost. Over the next few days, I tested her, quietly. I told her I was thinking of taking Mom out for a short trip, just the two of us. Olivia frowned. "A trip? Without me?" "Yeah," I said. "She hasn't traveled in years, but you're so busy. And what about the wedding prep?" "I trust you to handle it," I said, watching her face. That word, trust, hit her like acid. She smiled, but her eyes hardened. "Of course, babe. You can trust me." The next day, she accidentally mentioned that she'd talked to a realtor about potential investment properties. When I asked which ones, she said, "Oh, just options. You know, for after the wedding. I think your mum would be more comfortable somewhere with fewer stairs." That was the moment I decided to stop waiting for her to show me who she was. She already had. Now it was my turn to demonstrate what happens when you try to manipulate the wrong man. 2 nights later, we were watching a movie when she asked it, the line that would eventually echo across that lake. "Hey, babe, if your mum and I fell into the water at the same time, Who would you save first? I didn't flinch, didn't look away, just took a sip of my drink, turned to her and said evenly, "You, of course. You're my future wife." Her eyes lit up like she'd just passed some sacred test. Really? I nodded. Really? She kissed me, satisfied. You're such a good man. Most guys would hesitate. But not you, I smiled faintly. No, not me. And I realized that the lake was perfect, perfectly still, perfectly quiet. Perfect for teaching a lesson about what really sinks when love turns to greed. From that moment, I began to prepare, slowly, methodically. She wanted a test. I'd give her one, but not with words, with silence and something far heavier than hypotheticals. By the time the morning sun rose the next day, the plan was already taking shape. Olivia believed she'd trained me to say yes to anything. What she didn't realize was that she'd only taught me how to stay calm while I set the stage. And soon, she was going to learn that calm doesn't always mean harmless. Sometimes, it means patient. The next morning, Olivia left early for her yoga class. Her schedule was as predictable as her moods. Sunrise yoga, overpriced coffee, a few filtered selfies about self-care before coming home to lecture me about how I needed more ambition. That gave me exactly 3 hours. Her vanity was sacred ground. Half the guest bedroom had turned into a shrine for her makeup. Designer clothes and the handbags she called investments. Every piece had its story, and the Chanel she bought as a reward for emotional growth. The Gucci heels, she said, represented financial independence. Funny, how independence still meant using my credit card. Didn't touch anything roughly. I wasn't angry. Anger makes you sloppy. I simply packed her world into boxes, neatly, carefully, like I was helping her move. Then I carried each one outside, across the backyard to the edge of the lake. The surface was glassy, still and silent. I opened the first box and watched a silk scarf flutter like a surrender flag before it touched the water and spread out slowly. Then the next, shoes, handbags, makeup, perfume, all of it slipping away one by one. The sun caught the gold lettering of her designer labels as they floated, gleaming, then sank. By the time I was done, the lake looked like a crime scene, shimmering with color, calm but wrong. I stood there for a while, hands in my pockets, listening to the faint plop of things breaking the surface. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. When Olivia came home around 9, I was at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, reading the news like any other morning. The front door opened, closed, then silence. A minute later came the sound, a sharp, panicked gasp that turned into a scream. "What the hell did you do?" I didn't move, my hands itched. My heart thumped a little faster than usual, but I stayed calm and waited. She came storming in, face red, hair sticking to her forehead, pointing toward the lake with shaking hands. "My bags, my clothes, my makeup, everything." I looked up from the screen and said quietly, "Floating." She blinked, chest heaving. "Are you insane? Why would you—" I cut her off. "You asked me to save you first if you and my mom fell into the water." She froze. What does that have to do with—" "You said you're my future wife, that I should prove my loyalty." I leaned back in my chair. "So I thought I'd practice. I wanted to know what it feels like to let something sink before I save the person who actually matters." For a few seconds, she didn't speak, just stared, trying to process whether this was some twisted joke. Then her voice rose again, shrill, cracking. "You destroyed thousands of dollars of my things. You're cruel." "No," I said evenly. "You're cruel. You wanted to push my mother out of her home. You wanted to cut her off, control my money, and isolate me from the only person who's ever stood by me. You made love into a scoreboard and family into an inconvenience." Her mouth opened, then closed again. I stood up, calm, deliberate. "You told me once that people show who they really are when they think they've won." "You were right." I pointed toward the lake. "That's who you are. All surface, no depth. Shiny things that can't float without someone else holding them up." She trembled, tears filling her eyes, the kind she thought could reset everything. "Please, baby, I didn't mean any of that. I was just stressed." I cut in softly. "Stop, you can't gaslight the water. It's honest. It only reflects what's real." She followed me outside, still crying, still begging. The scene looked absurd. Her standing on the grass, staring at her floating empire, trying to reach for it like she could undo the tide. I didn't help. I just watched her kneel down at the edge, reach out, and realize every bottle, every bag, every fabric she adored was already soaked through, ruined. "Why?" she whispered finally, voice shaking. "Why would you do this?" "Because you made me choose," I said. "And this is me choosing." She turned, mascara running, anger flashing again. "You're choosing her over me." I looked at her, steady. "No, I'm choosing respect over manipulation, reality over performance. You wanted me to prove my love? I just did, by saving the part of me that still knew what love actually is." The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of her perfume off the water. She started sobbing again, louder now, maybe hoping it would sound tragic enough to make me fold. I didn't. When she finally stopped, I handed her a towel. "You might want to dry off whatever you can still grab. Then you should pack the rest. I'll have a moving truck here in 2 hours." Her head snapped up. "You're serious?" "Completely," her voice cracked. "You can't just throw away 3 years." I shrugged. "You're the one who treated them like something replaceable. I just gave you a visual." I turned and walked back toward the house, leaving her standing there, the perfect picture of irony. A woman surrounded by everything she loved most, sinking slowly in the water she wished someone else would drown in. That image stayed with me for a long time. By noon, the movers were there. I'd called a company first thing that morning, told them to expect a separation situation. They didn't ask questions. Professionals rarely do. Olivia was still outside, sitting on the patio steps with a blank stare. She looked smaller somehow, deflated. Her face went red. She scrambled toward the boxes, trying to grab a few items, screaming for me to stop. Her hands shook as she realized everything she loved was gone. When the movers started carrying out her remaining things, she didn't stop them. She just watched. Every thud of a box onto the truck bed sounded like a heartbeat slowing down. I signed the papers, tipped the crew, and stood by as they drove away. She finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "You're really ending this?" "Yes," her lip trembled. "Over stuff?" I almost laughed. "Stuff?" I pointed toward the lake. "That's not stuff. That's who you are, the things you value most. You said love was about priorities, right? Well, there's yours, floating." She shook her head slowly. "You're crazy. You need help." "Maybe," I said. "But at least I'm not pretending my greed is love." That was the last thing I said to her. She grabbed her purse and the one that survived and left without another word. The sound of her car fading down the road felt quieter than I expected. When she was gone, my mom came outside. She'd been upstairs the whole time, probably hearing everything. Her eyes widened at the sight, and she took a deep breath. "I never imagined it would come to this, but I'm proud of you for standing your ground. You didn't have to do that for me." "I didn't," I said. "I did it for me." She smiled sadly. "You're your father's son." That one hit deep. We stood there together for a while, watching the lake. Bits of color still floated. Fragments of leather, a torn ribbon, a lipstick case spinning slowly in the water. It looked almost peaceful. Mom sighed. "I never wanted you to choose, you know." "I know," she turned to me, her eyes gentle but steady. "Love doesn't ask people to pick sides. Real love just makes room." I nodded. "Then I guess I finally made some." That night the house was silent in a way that didn't feel empty. It felt clean. The kind of silence that follows when the wrong voice finally stops echoing. Over the next few days, Olivia tried reaching out. First came the apologies, long messages full of excuses about misunderstandings and stress. Then the accusations, how I'd destroyed her life, how she'd forgiven me anyway. I didn't reply to any of them. Not because I was angry, because there was nothing left to say. A week later, her friends started messaging me, parroting her side of the story. I sent the same response to everyone. If it was a joke, then she shouldn't be drowning in the punchline. After that, the messages stopped. Months passed. The wedding deposits were refunded. My evenings went back to quiet dinners with Mom, walks around the lake, and the kind of peace that doesn't demand proof. Sometimes, I'd see Olivia's posts online. Long captions about healing from narcissistic abuse, inspirational quotes about self-worth. None of them got many likes. Eventually, I stopped checking. Not out of spite, out of indifference. About 6 months later, I met someone else. Her name's Clara. She's different, calm, funny, grounded. The first time she met my mum, She brought her favorite flowers without me saying a word. They started talking about gardening, then recipes, then just life. It felt natural. No tension. No tests. One evening, Clara and I walked down to the lake. The lake reflected the sunset like fire on glass. She laughed and said, "Is it true you once threw someone's stuff in there?" I smiled. "I'm not through placed," she grinned. "Fair enough, why?" I looked at the water, at the soft ripples catching the light. "Because sometimes people need to see what sinks before they understand what floats." She didn't ask more. She just nodded and took my hand. That was the moment I realized how different love feels when it doesn't come with a checklist. Later that night, my mum said quietly, "She reminds me of your father." "The calm kind," I said. "That's exactly why I like her." Life moved on, slowly, quietly, better. Every now and then, when I pass by the lake, I still see something glinting at the bottom, maybe a bit of metal from a zipper, maybe nothing at all. But it reminds me of that day, and the lesson that finally stuck. Love isn't about who you'd save first. It's about who never asks you to choose.